Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Addendum with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Here to look at another part of the Wehrmacht which you do definitely feel need an overhaul, and that, of course, is the Heavy Panzer Corps, aka Wehrmacht Tier 4, the bit I usually tend to complain about because, again, it's just unique. There's no real other faction at the moment that has a Tier 4, meaning it just stands out that way. Of course, it's also costly and time-intensive to get to. Like in most circumstances, you'll first be able to get up really into the game, and then you have to go for the Panther, in which case, if you're rushing to it, you usually will have to go for the Panther. It's usually also right around the 20-minute mark, which is also normally around the time you can get out heavy tanks, calling stuff. And even then, like, it's not that good. Again, it's usually just this huge, intake of resources, and only really works if you're ahead, and that's, in a sense, almost kind of a problem, right? I mean, it's not that good in its own otherwise. The Panther is sort of neat, but in many cases it can also just completely backfire, not do anything for you. And the Sturmpanzer, well, a lot of people touted it, it's great. The thing is, you can also just go for a bunch of Panzer IVs, which will generally do the job just as well, if not better, plus being better able at handling tanks, and, overall packing a lot more utility. And that's sort of the thing here. The Heavy Panzer Corps is just really short on utility, plus with all its cost. I mean, again, if you've got any amount of infantry, you lose it during the process again, because you have to invest so much manpower as well into getting it. There's usually no reward there either. I mean, again, it's kind of why I'm talking about other given upgrades, so preferably stick in an elite infantry unit in Tier 4, just overall grab the Obersoldat and give them a slightly different name, and there you go. At least there's something there for the Wehrmacht late game, then, so help slightly pick up the pace. Of course, just give the Panzer Grenadiers a more useful upgrade, as I've also been hinting at for quite some time, but just something so when you actually get there, there's a bit of a reward, because that's sort of the problem. It's, a long chain, and in the end, you have to invest even more into it before you get anything out of it. Whereas for the Russian, for example, that ends pretty fast. Then again, pushing up T-34s pretty fast to get a lot of them, at which point, again, your Panther, if you decide to go straight forward, is going to be heavily outgunned and outnumbered. Your Sturmpanzers are going to be useless, and your Panzer is going to be a joke, and there's nothing else. There's no reward for it. I mean, there's nothing, slightly micromanagement. There's no, for example, just repair parties, which certainly, make the Heavy Panzer Corps, even just on its own, a bit more valuable. Like, it just ends up being this, dead-end sink of time and resource. And again, I mean, there's some players who are getting something out, but again, it's usually only when they're ahead. In fact, so far ahead that when the Panther hits, the opponent might just have a single tank, in which case the Panther can, yes, dominate. But again, that requires you're far ahead, at which point, again, you might as well just go, well, what for just going for 2 Panzer IVs? I could also dominate that one tank, and I could dominate the infantry quite efficiently. But again, if you're behind, the Panther just tends to be a really great drain on your resources, unless your opponent doesn't know how to use his tanks or tank destroyers or anything else, really. And usually, if you have to rely on the fact your opponent isn't very good with this stuff, for the Panther to be good, it's maybe not that good. So again, but I won't deny the Panther can have an impact. We've seen some players do, just seen as many just fail to go anywhere with the Panther because it hits so late. And again, if this is just even slightly outnumbered, the Panther just drops in utility, it drops in firepower, and the rest of the Heavy Panzer Corps still remains a pretty much big waste of resources, because again, it doesn't do anything else. And in that regard, they do need to add some kind of value to the Heavy Panzer Corps. Should you feel like, alright, I've hit the end of the tech tree, I am the late game faction, this is my late game, but it's not there. There are no upgrades, there are no additional units that are a bit more useful. The Sturmpanzer, again, is just not sufficient. It requires too much micromanagement. Again, it's supposed to fire 150mm gun with a crap ton of high explosives, more than the ISU 152, and that one you don't have to micromanage to murder stuff. This one you do. I mean, there's, all of these discrepancies. And again, the Panzerwehr are theoretically nice, but again, compared to stuff like the Katyusha, much more expensive to get, and, most of the time it's not going to have the same impact, unless you have to get it really, really, really close. So that one also just ends up feeling rather unsatisfying. And then there's just nothing else. No repair parties, no benefits, no elite infantry. Nothing. Like, again, there needs to be something at the end of the bloody expenses, At the end of this otherwise not very impressive rainbow, there needs to be something there. There needs to be a pot of Krupp steel that's actually worth a bloody damn. Which, again, in the current set of circumstances, there are no upgrades, there are no elite infantry units, there are no good Sturmpanzers or Panzerwerfers or Panthers that can actually fight more than one tank at a time, despite, again, being one of the objectively most expensive medium tanks in the game. And as long as that's the case, I mean, Wehrmacht Tier 4 is just going to be not very impressive, and most players will still go for the Tiger, Tiger Ace, or Panzer Force. Again, there's a slight increase again in players just going for it because they can. It's, I suppose, in some ways slightly less punishing, but overall it's still not a very good situation. And again, it still very much requires you to be so far ahead. Again, you have to wonder, why aren't they just going for Panzer Force? Because ultimately, or just a bunch of Stugs, that's really the question. In most cases, you'll be better still off with Panzer Force and Stugs. Again, there is no particularly great explosionary rewards from this, and by Jove, they need to add that. I mean, again, the simple one, just adding some repair pioneers. I mean, come on, why not? It would just again help a bit there with the Wehrmacht management burn, because again they have a greater one than the faction just getting there in terms of teching. So why not just give them a few repair pioneers for this? That would be a huge boon for the Wehrmacht. Again, at least feel like you got something out of it. For starters, like just a little something there, just a tiny little something. But then just unlocking upgrades. Say you can upgrade here, and Pentagoners get assault rifles. Your pioneers can maybe get PPS H41s, or even Sturmgewehrs or something. I don't know, or maybe an MG42. Grenadiers can unlock light machine or suppressor fire for the light machine. Just something extra, and of course just make the Panther better, make the Sturmpanzer better, and make the Panzerwerfer bloody better. And maybe, I don't know, unlock some kind of improvement to Blitzkrieg, so it's not just about moving fast, but also shooting fast. Upgrades, man, upgrades. Make it a bit like a mix of the Kampfkraft Center from the old Wehrmacht, but again, without stuff that makes you harder, just stuff that makes you kill stuff hard. Again, stuff that also in that sense requires some skill and some input from the player. That could, I think make a reasonable choice there. Get just slightly edging the Wehrmacht late game towards being a late game for once, and also just make it feel less punishing when you actually go and suffer losses. Then they're slightly more rewarding. At the same time, just by sneaking upgrades and all that, you could also make less tiresome in larger team games. So again, it's just going to come down to spamming stuff, because all of these things will then require input usage, and a lot of players just tend to struggle using in the basic abilities, and that only gets worse as you add more players, by the way. So I mean, there's a lot there that could just be done to make the Wehrmacht Tier 4 a lot more bloody useful. So those are sort of my thoughts on the subject matter. I mean, it's definitely one of the hard points they really need to work with, because so far they have not done a lot to make it more impressive and more useful, as a rule of thumb. So a little quick video there from me, your host Imperial Dane, with my thoughts on how to overhaul the Wehrmacht Tier 4. Hope you liked it. Hope you had some interesting thoughts while doing it as well. Pop in your own thoughts in the video comments as well, and if you like what I do consider donating or pledging on Patreon. Links also in the video description. This is Imperial Dane signing off, and I'll be off for another time for another video. Cheers everybody.